When we get together in our huemileres, our toques, our tambores, it's our opportunity to get messages to figure out what are we supposed to do next. Orisha will tell us how to deal with certain situations and help us figure out how to deal with our obstacles and the barriers that we're facing in our lives so that we can work together.
Welcome to Spirit and Liberation, the podcast where we bridge the sacred and the political, where ancestral wisdom meets the front lines of organized movement. Every episode, we bring you into conversation with spiritual practitioners, political organizers, and healers who are weaving ancestral wisdom into the work of liberation. We'll discuss everything from community-based care systems to the often unseen spiritual frameworks that accompany our movements. Whether you're a longtime student or initiate of African and indigenous spiritual practices, or you're just starting to explore these paths, this space is for you. I'm your host, and my name is Francisca Porchas Coronado. I am a movement builder and IFA practitioner who is deeply committed to liberation. Hi, everyone. We are excited to welcome a friend, a comrade, Janet Arelis Quesada, today to the Spirit and Liberation podcast. Janet Arelis Quesada is a queer Black daughter of migrants from the Dominican Republic who grew up in the Bronx. She has worked with communities in New York, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and nationally to work on ending sexual violence, preventing HIV and AIDS in Black communities, advocating for LGBTQ inclusion in media, and supporting the development of children and families by writing, facilitating, and training people. She was crowned Ocha in 2004 in Cuban-style Lucumí. Writing poetry, essays, stories, and dancing Afro-diasporic dances are her medicine, and she lives with her partner in Miami. Welcome, Janet.
So happy to be here, friend.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Iya. Iya is mother, so I'm going to be referring to Janet a lot as Iya because it's a very traditional way of referring to each other in our tradition. So to start, could you share with us what Regla de Ocha is in your words? I know we're going to dig into Regla de Ocha. It's another word for Lucumí, which I mentioned in your bio, but would love for you to tell us a little bit more about what it is in your own words.
When I hear Regla de Ocha, what I think about is those early Iyalochas, like Ocha B, Ferminita Gomez, and Latuan, and Ma Montserrat, who they were in the Cuban context having to recreate some of the things that they knew about tradition in Yoruba land, in Dahomey, in Benin. And they found ways to take these traditions and these things that they remembered and create a system that made sense in Cuba that is called Lucumí. And so when we say regla, it's about staying true to that system. So as they worked on it and created it and developed it, they had this is how we do things. This is the order of things. These are the songs we sing. This is how this ceremony is done. This is how we make concrete the orishas. And so it's a regla. These are the fundamentos. These are the things that we have to practice and follow in order to make sure that we are in line with what our ancestors taught us. So that's what I think of when I think of Regla de Ocha. It's a foundation, a way, a tradition, a lineage that helps you enact Lucumí in modern times.
It's the first time that I've actually heard somebody explain it in that way, and makes a lot of sense. Regla, meaning like the word regla in English means rule. So that makes a ton of sense. And you've been initiated for over 20 years into an orisha called Oya. Can you tell us more about what this orisha is and what has meant for you to be initiated into this road?
I'm sitting next to my altar because I'm celebrating my Ekuodon my Ocha anniversary. I was crowned to Oya 21 years ago, February 28th. And she's right here next to me in beautiful regalia. She has on a pañuelo, she has on two crowns, and she is a manifestation of love on this planet. Love for ancestors, meaning the way that we live in the world, knowing that we are not alone. We came here because our ancestors, and not just for me as a queer person, not just our ancestors like our grandmothers and mothers and fathers. In my case, my mother is alive, my father is Ibae, he is crossed over. It's not just our blood lineage, but also our aunts, our uncles, our cousins, people in the community that were part of us coming into the world and were part of raising us and were part of loving us and making it possible for us to live in this world despite the challenges. And so that is what Oya is. Traditionally, people talk about her, living outside of the cemetery gates, but she also lives in the marketplace. She lives in the world, and she's revolutionary and transformational. And I know sometimes right now there's like this thing with, oh yeah, people love her. And so they lean on the revolution and the transformation in ways that kind of make her just, like the powerful guerrera warrior spirit that she is, which is true. But I think sometimes what they leave out is that warrior, that guerrera, that transformation, that revolution starts first with the person in the individual. Then it comes out to how that person interacts with their family and their community. And then what that means for the world and how we can all link up together and create good things in the world. Oh, yeah, is all of that. I love her very much. I'm so honored to be her daughter. And I think I'm still, 21 when I was crowned in the house of a woman who was made to Oya for 69 years. So I feel like I'm still going to be learning what it means to be her daughter and what Oya means in the world. And I think that those of us who are her children, whether we have crowns or not, we have the capacity and the opportunity to kind of redefine her and recreate her in the world. So Yansan is beautiful. If you want to summarize, it's connected to ancestors, to spirit, the transitions between life and death, the first breath, the last breath. And she's just that powerful entity that helps us keep living in a world that wants to destroy us.
You and I got to be in Brazil this last summer. It was a really special experience through the Spirit and Liberation Program. And one thing that you kept naming in the process, and as I've gotten to know you, was you spoke about being a conscious person in the Ocha community, one of many that you know, some of whom you know, but noticing that this political awareness doesn't always translate collectively in spiritual spaces. So what do you mean by this? I'm curious if you can speak more into this, and what could it look like to bring this consciousness to our traditions?
First of all, I just want to say thank you for that trip to Brazil. I had always wanted to go to Bahia. I practice capoeira. I am not one of those capoeiristas that can fly. I am basically somebody who tries to move in a roda. And most of all, I love capoeira songs because they're spirit songs. And I connect to them on that level. And I think capoeira is like an amazing practice that allows people to learn how to live in the world through roda. So there's a lot there, right? So I had and my name in capoeira world is Baiana, which means a woman from Bahia. So all this time for years, I'm like, I need to go to Bahia. And then we had an opportunity to go with this trip, which was perfect because it wasn't just a chance to go to Bahia, but a chance to be with other practitioners, folks who are in Isheshe, folks who are not in Isheshe, right? Like our members that are not necessarily practitioners of those practices. And then those of us who are also Lukumi. And I got to see Oya Yansan in Bahia, and I got to meet Ialoshas de Candomblé. And what that meant for me was seeing, I'm not going to idealize it and romanticize it because it was just one venture into candomblé, and I have no idea what the dynamics may be in closed doors. I wasn't there every day, but I got to see how they care and steward for the land in the tejeros, how they honor the elders, and the elders have a place in the procession, and they are the ones who direct everything, and there's so much love to them too, not just honoring them in this cold way of saying, I respect you, and I am going to bow to your knowledge, but really like, you're my elder. Can I take care of you right now? Can I be in your presence? And then also honoring the young ones, the babies. There were beautiful moments where even as things were happening in community and in spirit and tradition, the babies were being taken care of at the same time. All these things are so beautiful. And I think that we have the capacity in Lukumi to do some of those things. Unfortunately, because of colonization, imperialism, because of all the isms, racism, homophobia, etc., it starts showing up in our practices. And it has created some things that I have seen in Iles, and I don't like it. And I was always like, well, how can this be? How can the Orishas allow us to continue moving in the world and practicing in the world in ways that bring these things in? But when I went to Brazil, I figured it out that it's not that Orishas are allowing that. It's more that those things exist in all of our practices. They exist anywhere in the world. And it is up to us as people of good character to root those things out of our practices. So that was amazing. That gift of the tejero, to see that in practice was kind of a reaffirmation of things that I've been thinking about for those 21 years. So I think it just inspired me. And when I came back, I've been slowly talking to a lot of priests that I know to talk about, well, how do we do it? Like those of us who have that interest, how do we do it? And it's not to become like candomblé, because candomblé is beautiful and it's its own practice. It's just in Lukumi, which has a lot of beauty, there's beautiful things in our practice. How do we bring what we want and create it in our Iles?
I'm curious what has been the response to that question that you have posed of how do we do this? And maybe there isn't any grand answers, or a whole strategy yet, because I think it's big work. But curious what folks have responded, and you approaching folks and asking, and then also what are some baby steps to take toward what we want to see.
It's been really good. And I love it because it's a new conversation for me to have with these folks, but people have been having these type of conversations for generations, probably since Lukumi began. Because if you read up on some of those stories of those Iyalochas at the beginning, a lot of the ramas started because of ruptures, because one Iya didn't like the way that another Iya was doing something. And so then they created a new rama, a new branch. So I think these conversations have been happening for a long time, but this is the first time that I'm engaging in those conversations with the people around me. And so I'm in like listening mode and learning mode. And like one of the people that I talked to, I wrote something and then she said, well, what's the call to action? Like, I hear what you're saying. I can see some of those things that you're talking about, but what are you asking us to do? And that was a great question to come back to me. It's like, what am I asking people to do? And I'm still like trying to figure that out. I think, again, I'm in that listening mode and that learning mode. Another was telling me, well, I have a contract or like kind of like an agreement that I use to talk to with my godchildren as they enter my ile around what kind of behaviors I want to promote in the world. And I have them read it before they join me. And I said, oh, can I take a look at it? I would like to see it. And she said yes. And she told me that she knows some other practitioners that have things like this. Another practitioner told me also the same thing, that she has been working. She's more of a person who has kind of like a law background. So she's been working on trying to bring like contracts into the Orisha space, into the Lukumi space, because to try to just make everything align and not allow for misuses of power and things like that to happen. So this has been my time of learning, of taking what the inspiration has been from this trip, taking it to the people around me and seeing how they react to that inspiration, how they react to the way that I talk about it, what they tell me back, and then seeing what organically comes out of there, like what kind of projects come out of there. Um, Definitely for me, it's always about writing. So I'm trying to figure out how to write about all this stuff and put it out there because I think that that is one of the tools in my toolbox that I can use. Yeah, that's as far as I've gone. Those are the baby steps that I've taken.
Maybe before we go into the medicine that you have around your writing, I'm curious, given the experience in Brazil and now, these conversations you're engaging in and the political reality that we currently sit in the United States with this new administration and essentially a new world order as it begins to shape in a lot of ways. Given our spiritual traditions and specifically Regla de Ocha, they often serve as a source of strength in difficult times. And so I'm wondering, given the current moment, as I named, what do you see Regla de Ocha offering guidance or tools for people trying to find clarity, strength, resilience?
Yeah. First of all, New World Order. So I am a I was born in 1975. So I was a child during Reagan. And then I was a new engaged adult worker during George W. Bush. And also, I was in college, I think, around the Clinton presidency or one of the terms. I'm just saying that we've been here in this type of thing before, and we have been here since the foundation of this country. Um, this particular iteration of it, this particular way that it's being implemented, of course, gives us these new challenges to try to deal with, and they are challenges that are having a huge impact on all of us that we can't minimize. But it was interesting, the new world order, because especially that particular term, I think that was around W. I'm not sure, but I know, I feel like my body has heard that before. But in those times and throughout those times and right now, Regla de Ocha is offering folks an opportunity to learn how to center themselves, how to use all of our techniques to heal ourselves so that we can show up for the kind of world that we want to create and to be able to respond to the moment with good character. It's really easy when things like this happen to just get so enraged that you can't even see. And then you act out of that rage. But what happens if instead of that, you act out of self love, you act out of what Yemaya teaches us about nurturing and about creation, what Ogun teaches us about, again, creation, making a way when there's no way, what Obatala teaches us about clarity, what Elegua teaches us about good decision making, what Chango teaches us about in terms of how do we say the right thing, say just what needs to be said, controlling the tongue. There's so many lessons that Orisha and Egun have for us about how to act in this world right now that are medicine for the practitioners. Also, Lukumi, Regla de Ocha is all those things that we visited during the Spirit and Liberation trip, which I appreciated so much. This whole idea of mutual aid. If you have a big ile, the idea is on your Ocha birthday, your God brothers and sisters, they come to your house to salute and celebrate with you that you have been crowned, and they put money down into the basket. And then their Ocha birthdays, you go to their house and you put money down on their basket. Not just money, but also time, support. Because, for example, during this year, I cooked for my orishas until 5 in the morning. And I did that out of love. And I did that because I have a small stove and because I'm not really somebody who's good in the kitchen. So I was going step by step, dish by dish for each orisha. But I was remembering that before I got crowned, I spent years with my madrina just learning how to cook for the orishas. She used to be hired to go to different aburas' house and cook for the orishas. And so even before I was crowned, I learned how to make the offerings for them. So the idea is mutual aid support. And that's something that we really need to lean on right now, as we don't want to be participating in these corporations that they have no interest but the bottom line and their profits, and they don't care what they do to community and to our places and our land in order to get that profit. And so it's better if we can opt out of those corporations and lean on each other. If there's an abure that knows how to cook, we can have them cater our events. If there's an abure who, is a health practitioner, we can go to them when we have issues. If there's an abure who is a designer, like I'm looking at my beautiful pañuelos that one of my abures in Thailand made for my orishas, we can ask them to make our clothes. We can ask them to make pañuelos for our ochas, like mutual aid, and then mobilizing. When we get together in our huemileres, our toques, our tambores, it's our opportunity to come in together and get a recharge from the music, the dancing, the drums, and also get messages to figure out what are we supposed to do next. Orisha will tell us how to deal with certain situations and help us figure out how to deal with our obstacles and the barriers that we're facing in our lives so that we can work together. I always think back to the ancestors and what was happening, which was, during times when people were enslaved, the only places where folks were allowed to gather was in the houses of mutual support, the cabildos in Cuba. And so they would come together to make a tambor, and that was when they could actually gather, which means that that's the time and the place where they could give each other information about things that are going on. Like, we can't really depend on the news for real because unfortunately our media is monopolized and corporation, and it's media that is always geared toward profit. And so it's not really telling us what is really happening, information that we really need. But when we have our huemileres, our toques, when we have our Ocha birthdays, our gatherings, we can say, this is what's going on with me, what's going on with you. And we can share that vital information that helps us plan and strategize for the future. So I go back to what the lessons were from the ancestors around that. So I think all of that, those concentric circles where there's self, family, community, and the world, right? So for some people, because of where they are in their trauma journeys and their trauma history and where they are as a human and in the path that they have in life, they're only at the place where they just need Regla de Ocha, Lukumi, they need their godparents, Egun and Orisha, to help them deal with that trauma, to do the work so that they can open their hearts again and love again when they've been taught that that's dangerous, and also how to learn how to show up for themselves and protect themselves and move in the world. So some people are at that self place with Lukumi and Regla de Ocha, and then other people are in the family place using Odu and Orisha and Egun to figure out how to repair whatever harm has been done in the family. And then some people are at the community place of, now I can use all these odus and this information to help me figure out how to act in the world, in my community, in my workplace, in my city, in my town. And then some people are at the place where they're like, okay, I can use these odus to figure out how am I going to act in the world. So I think all of that, Lukumi has all of that to offer.
I know today you have like a special offering for us, which is poetry, and that is your medicine. And your poetry highlights our traditions, connection to the land, ancestral presence. And so I know that you wrote a piece during our time in Brazil, and we had, invited you to share it today. But maybe before we go into that, just one question to set it up is maybe you could tell us a bit more about what inspired this piece.
Um, what inspired this piece is, well, one was a conversation that I was having with one of the people on the trip when we were on the van going from the Airbnb to the land, the beautiful sacred land where we had our meetings. And I saw the red dirt that was on the road. And I was thinking about that red dirt that is in all so many parts of the world and even across oceans, which shows, our linkages and our connections. So that was one part of the inspiration. Another part was Chief Popola's lectures during our time together. I think it would be very clear to know which part inspired it when you hear the poem. It's actually his voice. And the inspiration was also just this trip in general. I feel like a lot of times when we do interfaith work, it's usually the Judeo-Christian folks who get together, who do the interfaith work. So, which is beautiful. Folks who are Jewish, who are Christian, who are Muslim, and they get together, and it's vital to do that kind of interfaith work across those traditions to make sure that folks who practice those traditions are not in conflict with each other, and they learn how to see each other's practices as sacred, and they learn how to work together so that they cannot be divided, so that there's not horrible consequences. But what this trip was about for me was interfaith work amongst those of us who practice earth-based traditions. So folks in Isheshe, folks in Lukumi, also folks who are not practitioners of those practices. And then I always would love to see even other folks who practice the Red Road or who practice Buddhism and other faith-based practices that are earth-based, that are usually not part of the conversations, us talking together about our medicine. And that was one of the things, the most beautiful things that happened during that trip, is getting to see each other, show each other, like, this is some of my medicine. This is what I use. This is my spiritual medicine that I can share with you. And you can take a look at it. You can witness it. You don't necessarily have to participate in it. You don't have to believe in it, but you can respect it and understand it. And we can have conversations across these traditions to learn from each other about what they do for us. So that was like one of the inspirations of this poem. It came to me when we stayed at the place that belonged to a child of Oya. And that was another gift of this trip, is I got to hear her story. A beautiful person who has gone through a lot of tragedy and is still here in the world with an open heart and a loving presence. And she's a child of Oya. It was another mirror to see and understand who my mother is. I was in one of her rooms, so the room where I stayed in the Airbnb, and this poem just started coming to me. And I think I wrote it throughout, like, I feel like it took that night for me to write it. So it's definitely a dream. It's definitely a gift. And it was inspired by all of that. All of that.
Beautiful. Spirit speaks through us in all kinds of different ways, right? And it sounds like it wanted you to capture something really special from this trip. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Janet. It's beautiful to see your face too, and to hear your voice, and to get your perspective, and be your comrade and your hermana in these traditions that we practice. I'm gonna let you share with us your piece.
Dream of the red dirt. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt. I'm walking the red dirt, found up and down across the Atlantic in southern latitudes. I'm looking for spiritual arsenal that grows from seed and does not cut or bleed, but rather regenerates. The red dirt, soft like talc, muddy often with the torrents, dusty sometimes. The red dirt Zora wrote about. It's red like ungisao, like a stewed tomato, like the gums that hold our smiles. It's a red that looks like it can feed us because so many of us are hungry. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt. I'm walking that red dirt in Arembepe. I look towards the east, hope to walk across to Yoruba land. There's red dirt there too, and elders spitting betel nut, reciting Oriki. What's between us is enormous but fluid, and Chief says that if we sacrifice, the wind will not moan for the unburied, but rather praise our arrival. At harmony, alignment, purpose, and joy. The dirt is a torn garment. The red thread unites us. My feet are on red dirt, and through them I can feel the heartbeat of all my relations, speaking multitudes of languages, each with rituals and deities all their own, yet all intent on the work that is needed to recover our dignity from the attempts to destroy us. It's that red dirt on which I dance. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt. Once we were one garment and then we moved apart. Where we separated, there's ocean. Ocean that was life-giving, ocean that we feed poison, ocean who grows silent, muffled by all our waste. Yansan tore the earth to make a way for her sisters to go from their home rivers into the sea after their children. On the shores, they became Erzili and Dantor and Kalunga, Oshun and Yemaya, to be plied with flowers and perfumes and prayers that took on new meanings out of Benin, Dahomey, and Yoruba land. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt. Chief says time is umbilical. Time stretches back in loops, and it will stretch forward in spirals. And we were born just yesterday, and just before yesterday, so was the universe. If we keep moving in our purpose, we will see the garment whole again. We will be walking this red dirt. It will be in North Carolina, in Ghana, wherever it is found. We will be no longer hungry. We will dream and remember. In our hands will be implements, seeds, calabash, water, drums, incense. We will plant in that red soil beans, rice, corn, yuca, pumpkin, potato, eggplant, spinach, beets, chard, mustard, chiles, mango, watermelon, pineapple, guayaba. We will harvest and celebrate. I heard the nightingale and was sheltered by the banana leaf. The brown speckled moth landed on my shoulder, her wings signing love, peace. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt. Up above this red dirt, the sky is heavy with cloud. The deities gather, Coyote, Grandmother, Buddha, Yamasa, Anaisa, Kali, Tonantzin, or Batala. Down here on this red dirt, we pound a bateria, zurdos, jepeniques, cachishis. One sound is made of many beats. We each do our part. The messages come in the rain that our music brings. As above, so below. During sleep, we will defeat all our enemies and wake up in freedom on that red dirt.
Thank you again for joining us today on Spirit and Liberation. Brought to you by the Latinx Therapist Action Network, we are grateful to Janet Quesada for sharing her insights, experiences, and reflections. If this episode spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone in your circle. Spirit and Liberation is hosted by Francisca Porches Coronado and Jeanette Charles Marquez. Today's episode was produced and edited by Phil Circus.